thank you all for joining. I hope that the conference has been good so far. Sorry, I'm fighting with my Zoom controls, as is my tradition. When I share a monitor, it moves everything around and I get to play Where's Waldo and figure out where to put the controls. But thank you all for being here. I can't see all of you. I certainly can see a couple of people, but I can't see your facial expression. So if you roll your eyes at anything, you'll have to raise your hand so I know you're rolling your eyes. But beyond that, dad jokes aside, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go through a lot of content fairly quickly. Maggie has provided a handout that I think will be helpful. But let me just go ahead and go through this. If there are any questions, I know Maggie and Rebecca will help get those to me. If I can't answer them immediately, as is my tradition, I'm more than happy to follow up with anyone one-on-one afterwards. So if you'd like a one-on-one resume review, anything else, please share your information with Maggie or Rebecca, and I will get back to you. For that, really quickly about me, I'm honored to be the VP of Consulting here at Lightspeed. I consider myself, more importantly, perhaps educator and agile and business agility coach. Getting dangerously close to 30 years in technology throughout the SDLC or PDLC. 15 or so, getting dangerously close to 20, has been in senior leadership roles. I'm not trying to impress you with my background, but it's important because I was the hiring manager or manager of those managers in more than 10 different orgs and different divisions or departments. And so what I'm talking about is largely informed by things that I've done for my own teams, less from a consulting background, more from those senior leadership positions where I was building and growing teams and interviewing people. And I'm happy to share my experiences, observations, and perspectives with you today. With that, this is really the origin story of this presentation actually goes back, I think, 3 or 4 years. And the initial version didn't have Gen AI, and it's evolved dramatically because Gen AI, there's a lot of great value and there's a lot of hype as well. And what I found, though, is that there are a lot of really good practical uses for generative AI for career management. And that's what we're going to be focused on today. These tools have changed our work in many different ways. Again, career pathing, career management, really growth and opportunities. I find that these tools are really, really valuable. What we'll talk about briefly today, really a focus on resume creation and revision, as well as interview preparedness. Those are 2 key areas where I find incredible value of these tools. Caveats galore, obviously, caveat emptor. With all Gen AI tools, not just for this, but for anything, if you've heard any of my other talks on this or anyone talk about it responsibly, AI, I think, is good. The tools provide great responses, maybe 80% of the time, sometimes 60, sometimes 90, but it's always greater than 0 for me so far. And it's always been less than 100% good. So part of this is ensure that you are still in the leadership position in terms of validating the content that comes from these tools. That's going to be very important for you in your context. The screen just went black for me there. Can you all still hear me? Maggie, team?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry, I can't see you, but as long as you can still see and hear me, I will keep going. So getting started with Gen AI for career management, in the screen caps that I'll show you, we'll be using Anthropic's Claude and OpenAI's ChatGPT with a custom GPT that I created specifically for this purpose. But this guidance will work with really any of these tools. Use whichever one you're most comfortable with or experiment. The custom GPT that I'll share with you is really tailored for these interactions, so you may want to check that out if you use ChatGPT. But always also keep up to date with innovations in this area. Every time I do this session, even if it's a couple months since the last one, I always end up updating it because the world changes so quickly. So be aware of that and find improvements to these tools that may benefit you in these areas as well as others. So the first is getting your resume ready. So why does it matter if my resume is a bit imperfect? This study goes back to 2018. I imagine it's even more so now. But it was the largest study that I could find when I was doing some analysis. In 2018, confirmed with hiring managers over 1,000 of them, the data down at the bottom, that they would immediately kick out resumes due to typos or bad grammar. 77%. I've personally done that a few times. I think that falls into the sorry, not sorry to bucket. But really, if somebody's not concerned about the quality of their resume when they send it, that telegraphs a lot to me about how committed they might be in the work that they do. Whether that's fair or not, that is the way that is generally assessed. Relatedly, things like an unprofessional email address, resume without quantifiable results, resume with long paragraphs of text. I certainly have been guilty of that. Resume being generic. We'll talk about how Gen AI can really help with this one. I hated doing customized versions of resumes back in the day. It's a lot easier now. But 18% on that one got kicked out because it wasn't customized. More than 2 pages, 17% got kicked out for that. And then no cover letter. I'm not really a fan of cover letters. Some people are, but if it's a requirement, let's do it and let's do it well. I'll provide some guidance on that today as well. But these are reasons, if you look at these percentages going from highest to lowest, but still all of these are double-digit reasons why these professional hiring managers, people in HR are related. They just kicked out resumes without any interview, without a consideration for an interview, solely for these reasons. So the stakes are high. And that is a reason that really the driving factor behind why we want to make sure that our resume is good. So this is Claude. This is actually using real world experiences of mine. So you'll see some actual real context from things that I've done. So in this, in my example, I really need a good resume. For those of you who may already be in the interviewing process, I would still do this right now. Even if you have interviews scheduled, especially if you have them scheduled, refine your resume if you haven't already done this. And I would also say before creating those role specific, posting specific versions, always create a general holistic superset resume and then use that to tailor it from that. But I've always found don't try to mix those things up. This should be sequential, not parallel. Create the superset resume, and then from that, use that one once you've got it perfected for these specific versions. AI tools can really help with using that general resume as a foundation to create unique ones. And then as you're looking for resume improvements, I got the video back, so whatever you did, thank you. If you have a general area of focus for your desired type of role, you can put that in the prompt for context. So in this one, refine my resume, focus on senior leadership roles, valuable outcomes, ability to manage an 8-figure budget, and getting initiatives and new products completed across the line using agile and lean ways of working. That's what I've done. I've been honored to do that for a lot of my career. That's what I want my resume to be refined to reflect that. Once I have that solid version of my resume, I can use that as mentioned, that superset, that first version of it. Once I've gotten that in a good place, I can now use it to apply for specific versions based on specific roles, or even more granularly, as you'll see in this example, a specific posting. So in this one, this was a real world LinkedIn one that I found that was the head of PMO for a company called Brooksource. And in that, I asked it to specifically refine a version of the resume for this PMO head role. Now, note in this example, not just for a general head of the PMO, but for the specific one based on the specific posting that was provided by Brooksource. So in my example, an Agile PMO or VMO leader version would be focused on the key aspects of Agile project management and value. So I wanted to really telegraph that to align it specifically to my background and this specific posting that Brooksource has. In this particular one, I got an example, I got a response back from my prompt, and it was pretty good. But as I also recommend in every instance of using Gen AI tools, I don't like anthropomorphizing them. I think there's some inherent dangers that I won't get into here. But do think of it conversationally as if you and I are having a conversation and I ask you something and you respond to me or vice versa, we're likely to continue that conversation for a while. So when Gen AI provides something back, assess it. Again, that's where you are in charge as the human. In this one, my real world response I got was pretty good, but I said refine to be more focused on project and program management, and it keeps iterating through that. So the first was just not sufficient. It wasn't bad, but always assess that. And I can't think of the last time I took the first the first response from any of these tools, it was as my final. It's always some level of interaction. So always interact and be very specific about what's missing, what you need more of, less of, etc. As mentioned here, it wasn't as significant as I wanted, so I asked it to refine it and just keep going through that till you get what you'd like. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. So before we start creating customized versions, and I don't know, obviously, I haven't unfortunately had the opportunity to meet with each of you individually who are there, but I do know from personal experience and from a lot of the conversations I've had with folks that I work with, folks that I'm mentoring, and folks who are looking for ways to find a new role, that the market is difficult, but also in many cases, people want to not just make a lateral move or a hierarchical move, but they may want to explore based on their background where there might be other positions that they might want to consider. So if you are a Scrum Master today, but maybe that's not what you want to do forever, maybe you want to move into a coach role, but maybe you just want to say, based on my background, things that I've done, what roles might I consider? It's also really useful to use these tools to say, hey, what roles fit my experience? So here's some prompts. Maggie, by the way, has given that handout. We'll probably have some other prompts that I can share in addition to those, but you have real prompts that you can use as you leave the session today, if this is an area of focus for you, with specific prompts that you can use to get better quality output. So here's some additional prompts. What roles fit my experience? So based on my resume, so I'm going to upload that resume. What Agile roles best align with my experience? I will provide in the prompt. Now, you don't need bullet points. I'm doing this for this display, but this would just be a singular, very large prompt that you would input. But compare the Scrum Master, Product Owner, ADL, or Delivery Lead and Agile Coach roles. You could add other roles to that if you'd like, whatever you would like to do as far as your personal context here. But this will give you some ideas of what roles might align. And in this prompt, again, these 3 bullet points would just be one really long paragraph, include role descriptions, responsibilities, and success criteria. So I can put that prompt in there after uploading my resume, and it will give me tailored, targeted, useful feedback. Prompt B, so transitioning from technical to product roles, and again, the inverse of this would work as well. You just want to flip the approach. Review my resume as a developer engineer. What product or technical leadership roles could I transition to with minimal reskilling? And then prompt C, if I've got a resume pivot exploration, based on this resume, what career paths could I realistically pursue in Agile, product, or DevOps without major retraining? So we're really going 3 different flavors of, I may want to consider a different role. These are 3 different ways to really understand, very open-ended. Like the first one, and especially that last one, is very broad. The one in the middle is very specific. I want to move from a technical role to a product-based role. Again, vice versa. If you're in a product role but you have technical background, you could do that as well. But the same basic approach works. So these are some prompts that you can use if you're looking at what other roles might be something that maybe the next step on your career path. Very valuable to really see what things you may be qualified for, even if you don't pursue them. From that, once we've identified some of those roles, so on that last screen, maybe we said, oh, hey, I'm a Scrum Master today. I want to move into an Agile Coach role. I want to move into a product owner role, whatever that case may be. We can create unique versions of that resume. And again, as you saw on that first slide with the metrics and career builder, hiring managers are going to want to see specific areas and aspects of their posting in your resume. They really want it to be very specific. The requirements from the posting should be directly aligned to achievements and work efforts from your background. It's not only about those items, but removing things that aren't relevant. So at one point in my career, I'm embarrassed to admit, but I will admit it publicly, even while I'm being reported, that they got a resume that was 4 or 5 pages long, and it was filled with things I really did do. That's a lot to chew through for somebody reviewing it. So removing things is as important as the things that you add, because it's visual and cognitive noise to people if it's not relevant for the position you're applying for. But it's not just what's in there, it's what you extract out of it. This is really a valuable power or superpower of these tools to really focus in and zoom in on those items and to exclude the others. So let these tools do that heavy lifting for you by pasting your resume and the position, and then asking it to create a specific resume just for that particular role, not just for that, I'm sorry, just for that specific posting, not just for the role. There's a couple of other examples, and we will again provide these prompts, but I want to do some sort of comparisons now that probably all of you are using these tools at least a little bit, have some experience with them. Perhaps some of you have a lot of experience, but one of the things that is a universal value, I think, for using these tools effectively is specificity, context, and detail in the prompts. So as you approach these things, I'm just going to go through a couple of examples. But if I just put my resume in and say, make my resume fit for a product manager job, I'll get something. But how much better will that response be with the rewrite my resume for this fintech product manager role, paste that post, and then emphasize those specific things? That's really going to give me a very specific, tailored, targeted, focused version of that resume. And I will just say as an aside for all of these examples, if you don't do this, there are other people who will be applying for those jobs who are. So the expectations of a hiring manager, the people who are reviewing their system, the applications, even how the ATSs are configured, the applicant tracking systems that are doing the initial sort of vetting based on keywords, they're going to be looking for specific things. So we do kind of need to level up because the expectations of those receiving these resumes have also gotten higher through this process. I won't go through all of these examples just in the interest of time, but we've got a number of different prompts that you can use. Again, you've got that handout. We'll provide you with some additional ones if that's helpful, perhaps after the session or after the conference, but soon thereafter. Moving from a delivery manager to a product owner. If I have a resume and I'm a Scrum Master, but I want to make sure that it's for scaled Agile specifically, I've got that certification. I know that that is a competitive differentiator for me as a Scrum Master. What do I ask specifically to do? So I've got more of these examples, but they all have this basic theme that we want to really follow, which is these generic rewrite this, provide this, be very specific about where you're moving in this instance from and to, and what areas you want to highlight. One of the dangers that I have in my background, and many of you likely do as well, is you've done a lot and you've probably done it really well. There's a lot to celebrate on your resume. But again, especially if that's broad and diverse in terms of different areas, different skills, different roles, it's going to be confusing and noisy for the reviewers. So we really want to zoom in on the things that they care about most for that specific position. Scrum Master to Agile Coach, I talked about that as another example. So rather than saying things like make me look more senior for an Agile Coach job, this is a very common progression, right? Some of you may be Scrum Masters or team coaches today, and you want to go to the next level of Agile Coach, really at the enterprise level, at the portfolio level, whatever that might be, to be that next level up. What do I specifically ask for? So rewriting my Scrum Master resume for an Agile Coach role, again, those bullet points make all of the difference. I really want to focus on not creating things that I haven't done, but emphasizing, making sure that it's zooming in and focused on things like coaching leaders and teams. If you have done that kind of work, many Scrum Masters haven't. That's something where you would be at a competitive advantage. Metrics for maturity improvement and transformation impact. Those are sorts of things that some Scrum Masters do, some coaches don't. But for the most part, if I'm looking to interview and hire an Agile coach, those 4 bullet points are 4 things that I will want to understand from the interviewee, the applicant. Have they done work at the coaching level, things that I think are associated with coaching, especially at the enterprise or portfolio. So this ensures that the tools help us to rewrite and reframe things that we've done most effectively. I've got some other examples. Again, won't go through all of them in the interest of time, but like functional analyst to TPO is another fairly standard move or progression. So again, same idea. When I know if I'm moving from role A to role B, either lateral or hierarchical, either way, I should know what that new role's expectations are that are unique, and reframe to not create new experience that didn't exist, but to reframe the experience I have to put that in the best possible light for the expectation. So from there, we saw that 10% of the resumes in 2018 in that survey from Career Builder got kicked out because there wasn't a cover letter. I really don't like cover letters. I've not found them to be super helpful, even on the receiving end of them. But some people like them, and regardless, many organizations and postings require them. I will also speculate, but I believe this to be true, that this is also a process to make sure that people are slowing down and they really are applying for roles that they really care about, and that they really, it's not just a numbers game where they're trying to apply to everything that's possible electronically. So a cover letter, at a minimum, telegraphs the fact that I'm putting in some specific effort for that position with my application. That says something that I'm pretty serious about my level of interest. Gen AI makes this process considerably easier today, especially if you use it in context. Because if you look on the left-hand side of my real-world screen capture, this is a continuation of the conversation that I've used those screen caps for already in this session, which is I have now created a customized version of my resume specifically for that PMO head role at Brooksource. Now I want a cover letter for that role. So all of that information is already in context. You can specify how the letter will be sent. So generally electronically via email, but sometimes there's other ways. Refine that final output if needed to use a tone and language that aligns with how you speak and write, by the way. It's pretty easy for me these days to spot Gen AI generated content. It's not inherently bad, but I do, especially for leadership roles, I will want some level of personality. And certainly when I write something, 5 minutes, okay. When I write something, I will also expect that it is in a tone that reflects really who I am. So I will skip through in the interest of time some of the cover letters, but it will generate them for you. Again, you can be specific if there are specific things you want to include there. We have very little time to go through the interviewing basics. So what I'm going to skip through, you can find them, and we will provide this content for folks if you would like a copy of it. Of some sample questions that you may be asked, and how you can prep for the interview by, again, using that same context that you saw before. Questions to ask the recruiter, what questions should I ask? What questions do I think they might ask me so that I'm prepared? I really want those questions that I ask them and that they ask me about that specific position. Helps me make sure I'm ready for that specific interview. I'm gonna skip through this again in the interest of time. The job market, as we all know, is very challenging right now for those of us, especially in some of these agile related roles. It's competitive. I think it's really valuable to say, how can I stand out from other people who are likely applying here based on my resume? So again, Gen AI superpower, how do I stand out? Brainstorming ideas. So for me, my background is a little bit unique, and it found some things in my background that could make me a competitive differentiator for that role that I can emphasize. So my experience with large scale transformations, financial institutions with over $150 billion in assets, multi-industry expertise, some of those things. So again, your answers are going to be different than mine, but it will help us find whatever might put us at a competitive advantage. And then we know that we should showcase that. The last thing that I'll close with, and there's a link to this custom GPT in the handout that Maggie's provided. But part of the reason that I built this custom GPT was really for mock interviewing and to help folks in the Agile and related community to be able to get past the initial anxiety and prep for interviewing. Because I mean, it's anxiety producing in almost everybody. If it's not, you probably should worry. So I have this conduct a mock interview with me for a specific role or job posting, custom GPT, but this works really with any of the tools. The custom GPT is specifically tailored for this, so you probably get slightly better results. But you can see in the screen capture, this is a real screen capture on the left. When I asked it to conduct a mock interview with me, it asked for job title and company, type of interview, specific areas that you'd like feedback on. So I provide all of that. I say that it's a not yet announced transformation director role at Navy Federal Credit Union. Use your web search capabilities to align the questions to information about how they interview in their agile practice. So again, these are things that are emergent in terms of some of these tools, the web search capability, but those are the sorts of things that I'm starting to add in because that allows me to get a better quality answer. So I uploaded the resume, I provided that detail. And then from that, it provided the interview setup for the mock interview, role, transformation director, company, interview type. I didn't tell it what I wanted, so it gave me behavioral and strategic, focus areas, and then sample interview questions. All of that happened in far less time than it took me to actually talk through this. All of these are real world screen captures that came directly from that custom GPT. So it asked me a question. You can see I've got this very long response. But that is what I would say verbally in response to the question that was provided. And when I typed that in or hit enter, it provided this response. It told me my strengths. It told me the things that I was doing well. And then it gave me some ideas of things that I wasn't doing well. And so it gave me some specific suggestions about using the STAR method and then prompting for some further questions. So from that, and I'll close with this. I know we're basically at time. My follow-on was to generate a list of 10 questions, again, specific to the Navy Fed. This is not a real role, by the way, I just made that up. But the Navy Fed transformation director role, I said, generate a list of 10 questions they're likely to ask, along with talking points for what I may wish to respond with. Ensure the responses allow me to enter my own specifics for empirically based questions. I found that if I didn't specify that, sometimes the tools would say 25% cycle time reduction. I never said that. Don't manufacture metrics for me. That's not good. So I want placeholders for those things. From that, it said here are 10 interview questions that you might have. And so I won't go through them in much detail, but all of these came out again in less than a minute. Describe a time when you led a significant transformation initiative. And then it gives me those talking points I asked for. Talk to me, what's the situation? What was the challenge, the approach, and the outcomes? Question 2, how do you approach aligning agile practices with organizational goals? Can you provide an example of how you manage conflicting stakeholder interests? For those of us who have done this work, and I'm sure all of you, if you're at a global agility conference, this resonates with you. These are good questions. And at the agile leadership level, these are questions that I would ask and I would expect to be asked. So that's 1 through 3, 4, 4, 5, and 6. What strategies do you employ to ensure continuous improvement? How do you measure the success? Describe your experience with agile at scale. Those are good questions. Those are questions I should be asked in an interview. And it's giving me the talking points about what I should be prepared to provide in my response. And I couldn't get all 10 on here. So here's the last 3 of the set. How do you handle resistance to change from team members or leadership? Who hasn't had that issue? So these are good questions. These are questions I didn't see this other than building the GPT, but these are questions that I would ask and that you are likely to be asked. So prepping in advance and having this all at your disposal and going through the mock interview process, it will really prepare you and put you at a competitive advantage in how you were able to interview, resume, and the interview process itself. So